I think the people who like mouthwashing aren't lying, to you or to me. I think they do like it. It takes a special brand of tribalism to actually trick yourself into thinking you like something when you don't. And this is a random indie game by the developers of How Fish Is Made, a game I admittedly like a lot. Nothing is forcing these people to say they like something when they don't. They haven't been fooled, they haven't been tricked, and they're not lying. But I think it's time to be honest about Mouthwashing. For its cool visual style, ambitious story, and, the fact that it's a first-person horror game. A genre that's both popular enough to attract millions and oversaturated enough to have standards lower than Hell's Basement, Mouthwashing just isn't very good. The usual disclaimer. If you like mouthwashing, we are not enemies. Not necessarily, anyway. I won't exactly be inclined to like you if you blow smoke in my face or shock my dog or something. But like I said in the intro, I don't think you're lying when you say that you enjoy it. I just think you're wrong when you say it's good. Mouthwashing is not a game entirely lacking in virtue. It's got a cool aesthetic that's both stylish and not too hard to look at for long periods. Cult video game studio Arcane Kids is noted as saying, "Create the games you wish to see on the Sega Dreamcast." And that's this to me. The sound design's okay, if a little reliant on repeating clip glitching. But the thing that one's enjoyment of mouthwashing is truly predicated on, the big defense I've seen given to it, is its story. And its story is just awful. This isn't my first time attempting to relate my analysis of mouthwashing, and every time I've played through it, thrice now, every time I've analyzed it, every time I've looked over footage and wiki articles, I've only liked it less, and I didn't love it the first time. Let's begin. Every story ever needs two things to be any good. 1, a reason to stay. 2, a reason to keep going. Whether you formalize this to yourself or not, you know it already. You start to fast forward when you have a reason to keep going and not a reason to stay. When you've got a reason to stay but not a reason to keep going, well, that's when you start looking up clips on YouTube. Think Mortal Kombat fatalities. I want to see the thing in front of my eyes right now. The consequences mean nothing for me. The very moment the story drops off its interest curve even slightly, I'm bored will start flashing in your mind immediately in this scenario. But a great story, one that you're compelled to experience, naturally has both. The explosion is exciting, and the consequences are impactful. A fireworks show is more fun when you've got something to celebrate. The external appeal, the broad strokes of mouthwashing, are all very tangible. It's stylish, very stylish in fact. It's been a long time since I've had something that visually reminded me this much of Evangelion, and an even longer time since something's reminded me of Ava's Nintendo 64 game. I am of course referring to Sin and Punishment. It's a horror game, and except in cases of fairly extreme negligence, those are kind of innately captivating. Horror and gameplay. The way players interact with a horror personally rather than passively viewing it, say, in a movie, is almost transcendently perfect. But these are forms of immediate appeal, and if either of those begins failing to capture my interest, I need a reason to hang on rather than just switch to seeing clips of the horrible horse monster on YouTube. A story can achieve this in many ways. Number 1, pulp. The immediacy of what's right in front of us, a story told short, sweet, and relying on the excitement of its premise to keep us going. Likely our oldest form of lasting appeal. The reason you tune in for the next episode is either because A, the cliffhanger we left on is exciting. Our heroes are really in for it now. How will Captain Crunch Calloway make it out of this one? Tune in next time to find out. Or B, because the quick story told was so fun and exciting that we can't wait to see how they pull it off again next time. Number 2, discovery. The story promises to show you things you've never seen or imagined before. The mystery box. We could also call this concept. Whenever you have a story that says, things will never be the same, or this is gonna change everything, in its trailer, that's what they're trying to get you with. It's exceptionally difficult to pull off in a satisfying way, but A, it's been done, it's possible, and B, it's not what mouthwashing's attempting anyway, so let's move on. 3, nerd appeal. Increasingly popular in recent years, I often call it power scaling informally, though I'm talking about much more than that. High concepts floating around each other, speculation in both a lowbrow and highbrow way. From easygoing questions like who wins in a fight, Iron Man or Thor, to the staggeringly wild questions raised by The Star's My Destination, like How could you conceivably build a prison in a world where everyone can teleport at will? Number 4, novelty. This isn't the crowd-pleasing popcorn attitude it sounds like. In fact, I'm mostly referring to philosophical novelty. I have something interesting and novel to say about the world, and wouldn't you like to hear it? This is the concept behind a lot of high-grade fiction. This was the case for, say, Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five, where Billy Pilgrim claims to see the world in a different way than you do. Ayn Rand's The Fountainhead, where the uncertainty around its apparent asshole of a main character, Howard Rourke, leads one to ask, wait, what kind of main character are you? How do you see the world? Or even Tolstoy's immortal classic, Anna Karenina, whose world is so full of characters lost in a mire of confusion and ennui that the titular Anna seems to be the only sane woman in an insane world. This turns out not to be true, but it still presents an extremely effective form of philosophical novelty. We still want to know. What do you have to say, story? What wisdom are you hiding that I've not considered? And 5, characters. The simple human connection with another human. The reason that Chopping Mall is both one of my favorite and least favorite slasher movies. I like these guys, I don't want them to die. I want to see if they make it out, or who makes it out. I have formed a connection with an entity, a character, that rings as true and human to me.
But not a real child to talk to. Not a living person.
Robinson Crusoe, not real. And Friday, and the parrot, with green body and yellow tail, not real. He may do, this boy.
It's less about liking them than it is about believing them. Bev Keane from Midnight Mass is a character I hate, and believe in. She makes the story stronger despite my seething distaste for her. If characters ring as real, then typically we connect, whether positively or negatively, to them, enough to want to see what happens to them. Now, that's not an all-inclusive list. Really, it's a sampling of a few to show off not only what Mouthwashing is attempting, but also what it's not attempting. Other forms of long-form appeal might be the immersion in a story's world, or also known as why I read concerning hobbits over and over again. Exceptional short-term appeal. Like, it sucks, but it's so pretty to look at that I keep coming back. Or even peer pressure. Or why I stuck around for the rest of the season despite hating every moment. With all that out of the way, I think it would be inarguable to say that the forms of appeal beyond immediacy, such as the immediate horror, the immediate visual appeal, that Mouthwashing is attempting is a mix of character and philosophical novelty. These are kind of all we have. Not even huge fans of Mouthwashing will deign to praise the game's gameplay, and its hallucinogenic sequences, while occasionally fantastical, do not contribute much to the storytelling other than short-term visual appeal and subtext, which itself contributes to philosophical novelty. I feel I've proved with some rigor the basic concepts at play. If Mouthwashing succeeds or fails in its story, it will be due to its character and its philosophical novelty or wisdom. If you disagree, this is where to turn the video off, because it's the position I'll be arguing on top of from here on out. Mouthwashing is the story of the crew of the Tulpar, a spaceship provided by the Pony Express, a comically evil corporation in charge of freighting and transport. At the very beginning, one crew member, presumably the character of Captain Curly, intentionally crashes the Tulpar into an asteroid, grievously injuring himself to the point of total dependence on others for nutrition and painkillers. The mantle of captain is taken up by co-pilot Jimmy, whom we play as for the majority of the game's runtime. The crew, aware that this will be their last flight due to the Pony Express going bankrupt mid-delivery, void their paycheck by entering the top-secret cargo hold in search of rations and supplies, only to find excessive quantities of mouthwash. A mouthwash so cheap and sugary that it likely provides no antibacterial benefits to the user. The characters are Captain Curly, presumably guilty of the crash and now being tended to by those he screwed over, Jimmy, a surly co-pilot straining under the responsibility he yearned to achieve, Anya, an incompetent nurse who received no medical training despite being promised training by the Pony Express, Swansea, a vacant and irritable mechanic riding sobriety's edge like a tightrope, and Daisuke, a chirpy, bubbly intern seemingly unaware of the innate and unending cruelty of the world around him. With all this established, let's talk about the Pony Express. The constant imagery of horses, the prevalence of the corporation's mascot in all its horror segments, the references in casual conversation to the life the Pony Express has provided to them, the Pony Express's importance in the story can't be understated. The low roar underscoring this game is that none of this would have happened if the Pony Express wasn't so evil. Also likely that the Pony Express represents not only itself, but the system that gave birth to it. And that's appropriate. Because the Pony Express didn't just ruin these characters' lives, it also ruins their story. The Pony Express is not obsessed with money, it's not greedy. It does far too much against its own interests for one to believe that the Pony Express is even partially concerned with money. It's obsessed with evil. It's evil for the sake of evil. Well, welcome to corporate oligarchy. No. Any rational person's criticism of capitalism or corporate interests is not that these businesses are run by irrational Satanists who are attempting at great personal cost to inflict as much suffering onto the world as humanly possible. The real criticism is that they are far too concerned with money to concern themselves with even the slightest bit of humanity. It's the amorality that naturally dovetails into immorality. When Amazon locks its workers into literal cages, it is not for the purpose of breaking their spirits, it's a misguided attempt to increase productivity. The action is just as evil either way, but one explanation makes sense in terms of how a corporation run by the greedy can attempt to squeeze profits out of its spongy, easily exploitable workforce. The idea that they lock their employees in cages because it's funny is the thinking of a child who has forgotten that a worker can quit and find a different job, and not just might, is not just likely to, but will, in fact, even accept lower pay if it means greater dignity. And it's a story that happens every day. The Pony Express is evil for its own sake. It's a child's dream of evil. A vision of the devil before the adult mind is fully developed. It is protecting, with extremely harsh consequences, corporate information that is entirely inconsequential. Okay, so what, I hear you cry. So you hate the Pony Express. You're supposed to. What's the problem here? The problem, good viewer, is that these blithering morons signed up to work with them. Consider a worst-case scenario for anyone in a capitalistic system. You end up robbing a gas station and either succeed or get sent to jail, or possibly killed. You lose your home and you can't find work. These are awful things to happen to a person. Now here's the job these characters all necessarily and willingly signed on for. 1. Pays like dog shit. Multiple references to this money being just barely enough to live on. Pay that's apparently not even close to justifying personal specialization such as electrical engineering. 2. Requires upending your life with an excessive amount of travel. You will not have your family or loved ones near you. 3. You will be treated like cattle constantly. The only person who seems not to realize this is Daisuke. The characters get one communal birthday party per trip, despite not being lorded over by any overseer who is determining their individual actions. 4. Will take over a year of your life. You will not be doing this in cryostasis, you need to tend to the ship. 5. It's extremely hazardous. Easily sabotaged by a crew member, self-evidently, and even disregarding that, is traveling through the cold void of space. 6. Doesn't include any notable benefit other than a continued job record, which is provided by the Pony Express, a company no one trusts and everyone hates. 7. Includes a stipulation wherein opening a door to acquire insubstantial information can void other people's paychecks, meaning someone could hit the right series of buttons to make sure you don't get paid for a year's worth of work, and 8, comes from a company on the verge of bankruptcy. There is no exaggeration when I say you would be better off robbing a 7-Eleven. This is capitalism as understood by a 12-year-old socialist. No one in their right mind would willingly take on a job like this. No one. Especially not people with personal specialization. Otherwise, why specialize to begin with if it adds nothing to your working value? Okay, so the economy on inhabited planets is so bad that these characters have all been forced by proxy to take this job, right? That makes sense. It requires us to make excuses on Mouthwashing's behalf, but let's just say it's plausible for the sake of being thorough. Hence, this hypothetical economy justifies taking on this job. If that's the case, we are left with 2 options. 1. There is, somewhere out in space, a colony or colonies so densely populated and competitive and subjugated by corporatism despite being unshackled by space travel into the enormity of space, that the competition for the simple means and currency to live is so unbelievably fierce that long-haul hazard pay freighters have zero means to leverage their importance, and they're clearly important, they're hauling millions in stock, and are thus totally justified in signing up for contracts that will void themselves if they even open a door within their own ship. In the real world, people take big markups on this kind of contract because of these stipulations. Ask any military contractor. Or 2, these characters are morons for having accepted this contract. There is one other thing that could justify this, and what's more, justify it well: governmental coercion. The government has literally forced you to take this job. That's not only plausible, it's happened in the real world, countless times. But then it stops being a criticism of capitalism, doesn't it? It would then be a criticism of fascism or communism. So keeping in mind that these characters willingly took on a job that crushes them into bone meal and provides them no benefit for doing so, where does that leave the characters? It leaves them in a really poor spot, let me tell you. What are these people moaning about? They signed up for this. Curly talks about having made it, but shares all the same frustrations about his poor treatment at the hands of the Pony Express, because this company can't be depicted as doing one thing even moderately smart or in their best interests, like paying a captain what he deserves or not voiding his paycheck, as well as the entire crew's paycheck, for the simple act of checking on their cargo. Anya somehow expected she would receive proper medical training from them? The hilariously evil company with a track record of under-providing? Why is Daisuke acting like this is a positive experience? Is he fucked in the head? Swansea can bitch and moan till the cows come home about how he was happier as a drunk falling asleep in a gutter, but then quit, you fucking asshole. Mild spoiler warning, and what's more, yeah, evil begets evil. The numerous atrocities committed by Jimmy, which become the central focal point of the story, are constantly brimming with the undercurrent that the Pony Express created a fertile ground in which he could, consequence-free, monstrously abuse the people around him. My editor, Jordan, hi Jordan, before having played the game, was under the impression, due to the controversy surrounding Anya, that the game was about the systems in place to cover up sexual abuse. And it's been bugging me since he said it, because it's a legitimate criticism of corporate culture. Especially since there's a reason behind it. You are required to view the justification. We don't want to be exposed for being complicit in assault. Even and especially if it means coming to the conclusion that it's not a good enough reason to do this inherently evil thing, you monster. But let me remind you of a movie. Do you remember The Purge?
And everything is gonna be okay.
Nothing is ever going to be okay again.
The Purge is a movie about a hypothetical scenario wherein the United States mandates a totally lawless 24-hour period wherein anyone could get away with murder or any other crime free of consequences. The Purge is depicted as an intensely evil thing, and the moral is that it should not be adopted. But it's not analogous to real life. I agree that the Purge is evil. It's a good thing it doesn't exist. The thesis statement behind Mouthwashing is that a company like the Pony Express is evil. I agree. Good thing it doesn't exist. Good thing that not a single free economy in the world would tolerate the self-defeating existence of the Pony Express. Not without governmental protection, anyway. Good thing that in the real world, specialists are able to leverage their skills to improve their lives. Good thing that we have unions, lawful protections, and what's more, the economic reality of choice and liberty to protect us from them. When evil corporations do appear, and they do a shocking amount of the time, and they offer you a job with unlivable pay, hazardous conditions, long-haul freight, no guarantee of payment, and exceptionally poor treatment while being on the brink of bankruptcy, you can maintain your dignity by saying, actually, I think I stand a better chance of surviving on the streets. These characters are not victims of capitalism. These characters are victims of themselves and their own choices that are so stupid, irrational, self-defeating, nihilistic, and evil that I don't see them as characters in the same way that I see Bev Keane. They're not hateable because they do evil things, or are naturally stupid. They are contrived stupid, so that a poorly constructed criticism of capitalism doesn't accidentally turn into a well-constructed criticism of totalitarianism. If they had conceded an inch by saying, "This job sucks, but the pay was too good to give up," or, "Yeah, it sucks, but the job security's really nice to have," then maybe we'd have something. But they didn't, and we don't. These characters don't have identities outside their jobs. They are their jobs. Every conversation, action, and decision is predicated on the fact that they decided to be here for no benefit whatsoever. The Pony Express is the monster that you run from, the entity that you talk to at the end, and the provider of the degenerate Jimmy-containing cage, a trap that is the tulpar that no one but a complete dunce would willingly walk into. I believe it is no exaggeration to say, going back to my original analysis of long-term appeal, that this game provides no philosophical wisdom to share with us or intrigue us with, and that its characters utterly fail in their ability to connect with us on any human level. I said in the beginning that I don't think the people who like this game or story are lying, and I still believe that. I have tried, truly, to look at forms of narrative appeal that stretch beyond the all-consuming presence of the Pony Express, despite the fact that it sure seems to be the developer's intention that we focus pretty wholly on them. And I found exactly one. No offense intended at all to the credited artists who were likely just expressing themselves and they occasionally made me laugh. But guys, can we finally be honest about mouthwashing? Please?
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's revelries are ended. If you enjoyed the video in any way, all we ask is for a humble subscribe in the tin can currently being passed around. On the screen before you is a list of our patrons who have decided to donate their hard-earned coin. And you may visit us after the show if you wish to join our steadily growing list of patron supporters. I hope to see you all again soon, and a thank you for stopping by.